recording. And Om Namah Shivaya to those of you who are here in person, and also those of you who will watch this at home at most probably a later date, later time. And even though this class might be seen at a later time than now, we always have to remember that, because sometimes people get caught up around not being able to be in the presence of a teacher, because there's energy coming from the teacher. There's like kind of direct contact coming from the teacher or the guru. And of course, practices can feel stronger and more powerful. But really, this is a psychological thing, that when we're in the presence of the teacher, then therefore that energy, that pranic field must be stronger. But it's not necessarily like this, because the energy is timeless and is infinite. And all that my job is to spark that awareness, to spark that pranic energy in your own field of energy to awaken. With my own field of energy, of course, it's different if I'm doing like, say, Reiki or hands-on healing, because then it needs my specific pranic energy that's there. But when we talk about things that are at a much more subtle level, at in terms of the timeless, in terms of the infinite, then it doesn't matter where I am, or when you watch this video, or when you watch whatever master on YouTube or in whatever podcast, that transmission can still happen, as long as your own karma is ripe to understand that teaching. And that's what it comes down to, really. The grace that we do bring or have from the divine, whether it's from the grace of Shakti, as we talked last time, the grace of Shakti through Shakti Kundalini, or the grace of Shiva coming from above, that energy comes, that very subtle energy even, that consciousness, that awareness comes when we're ripe for it. So this is why it seems sometimes like the divine is a little bit random in who they choose to have this. I know that I was in like a yogic community for a long time, and indeed it seemed like this. I'd been practicing for 3-4 years, really intensively, really dynamically, really with good intentions. Of course, as I always say, it wasn't like 100% pure, but it was mostly pure, to just want to learn how to love and want to give myself more freely, etc., etc. But it seemed like sometimes new people were to come to the school, and right away they would realize truth, like within the first couple of weeks of coming to hear about it. And it's kind of discouraging sometimes for the practitioner because of that, because it seems like grace descends randomly. And it's not randomly, although we also can't deny this randomness from divinity, which is infinite, because also the infinite can be random as well. But usually we are able to hear and to deeply hear, to deeply listen to teachings, and to deeply be able to integrate these teachings when we have the maturity level. When we have the maturity level to be able to deeply listen and not brush over concepts which seem too much for us. It's something that we can deeply just bring into ourselves, and it changes us forever. And it sparks something within us. And there can be little truths that do this, little things that we understand and that kind of click for us. And then, of course, there can be great truths like a great awakening. And really on this path, the Tibetans have a saying: for every lama, for every spiritual practitioner, for everyone who is walking this path, there is a different path. So it's not so clear. It would be nice if we were all the same and we all could traverse the same path and reach it the same way. But we could also see how in doing so, in being on a path like this, it might leave some people behind, because not everyone has the makeup for a one certain path. So in saying this, if we look at like a path of Christianity, say let's just say, because there's many different kinds of Christianity, but when you are on a Christian path, you're most often expected to go into one. You're either Catholic or you're Orthodox, or you're one of the many hundreds of different kind of Protestant churches, and you're meant to just follow that solely. And it does leave some people behind. And so what happens is that it makes a path a little bit inefficient, because we might need something more, something different. And so this is why in yoga, in tantra, it's built right into the tradition that we can follow different paths. It will end in the same place, but none of us are going to traverse that same path in the same way. Some of us will veer out and some in. And really, when we talk about modern day tantra and modern day yoga, and I don't mean like just neo tantra where we kind of create our own thing out of tantra, and the same thing with yoga, but that we are following traditional methods, traditional means, we can as well be pursuing and looking at our childhood traditions. Like, let's say if we are Catholic or something. Not that I grew up Catholic, but just as an example, if we grew up Catholic, then we could also be looking at these other traditions which help to, and they can actually, because our childhood tradition, let's say that we went to church when we were young every week, and we went to Sunday school, and we saw the Bible, and we heard things here and there, and we saw images of Jesus healing the sick and Jesus doing this, doing that. There is something in our psyche where Jesus is an important figure, like a protector, kind of. And indeed, even Guruji is saying this, that the religion we grew up with as a child, that deity, which for Christians it's Jesus, that deity, Jesus as God, I suppose, as the Lord, as a deity, has some like duty to also protect us. in a certain way. So this is why whenever we come of age often and we start to look outward for other traditions, because like, I don't know, if they don't always like, some of these traditions don't always go with the views that we have, or the lifestyle that we have, or who we are. Actually, they don't accept us as who we are, then we have a problem in reconciling that. And really, like, we need to reconcile that. It's important, and I feel like it's a duty that we have to reconcile our differences with our ancestral tradition. So of course, like, if we do accept some level of Christianity or Jesus as an enlightened being who came to earth and created a new religion and preached this, did this, did that, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to follow the teachings of the church. But we can try to, with a yogic understanding, with a yogic awareness and opening, we can try to understand the teachings of Jesus. And really, like, for example, if your background is Christian, it can also be very difficult though, because many of us are really scarred from Christianity. But we will see if we bring a yogic understanding to it, and we bring wisdom, not just a dogma. We don't bring the dogma from Hindu. Like, whenever we study yoga, we don't follow that in a dogmatic way. We use our common sense, we use our own wisdom, we use a lot of things, because we approach it as an adult in terms of kind of in a rational way, which is also very good to do. And also, for the most part as well, when we can approach Tantra, when we can approach yoga, we also don't need to do it in a fluffy sort of way. We can be very focused and concentrated, and understand things from like a metaphysical point of view, something which is beyond the physical. We can understand it as well in a philosophical point of view. We can understand, like, the deities, for example, like Kali doesn't really exist in the sky like she's portrayed, or Bhairavi or whatever, but actually that image is symbolic of what Bhairavi, of what she represents, rather than being some big terrifying form somewhere floating around in the clouds or something. So we don't look at these things as dogmatically, or what, I don't know, might be taught to could be taught to a young Hindu person when their parents ask, or the priest tells them, not the priest, but I guess the Brahmin priest would tell the child. But rather, we look in terms of symbolism, and in a deeper way than just that. And as well, whenever we look at our ancestral traditions, as wrong as they have been, and as bad as those traditions might have been, we try to look deeper. We try to see that, like, although maybe the church doesn't accept everybody, I can't imagine that Jesus wouldn't accept everybody, etc., etc. So like this, we actually read the words of Jesus rather than maybe what St. Paul wrote. If the words of St. Paul contradict us, or cause problems, and like this, we can try to see things at a deeper level. Thank you for that comment, Sophia. Yeah, and on this note, although this is a little bit sidetracked from the meditation, but I wanted to mention it. Um, on a side note, yeah, like for myself as well, I was very kind of anti-Christian in a sort of way. I grew up as Pentecostal, and from the age of 12 or 13, I was kind of anti-church because I found that, especially for Pentecostals, there's a lot of dogma, there's a lot of kind of hellfire and brimstone. There's a lot of gnashing of the teeth, and there's a lot of there's a lot of darkness, especially in that tradition, in that specific tradition. And I was very against it. And then later on, after I'd done yoga for a few years, then I approached it from a different way as well. The teacher that I had at the time, he commented on the Gospels and put light on the Gospels from that yogic point of view, which helped me a lot, a lot, a lot. And so later on, actually, I became baptized again by Orthodox, which is where I got my name Thomas from. Yeah, and then later when I found my guru, I got the name Bhairav, and so that's where Bhairav comes from Guruji Rajkumar, the head of the Shivoham lineage. So yeah, the wisdom of teacher of Jesus, as Sophia writes, is a very good book, and I have read that. It was quite a while ago, but yeah, good. So today, I will give a meditation actually, and this meditation is quite dear to my heart, and it indirectly activates Kundalini Shakti. So really, this meditation, I have adapted it a little bit to fit in with the practices that we're already doing with mantra and whatever, because Kashmir Shaivism, interestingly enough, Kashmir Shaivism is more of a practice, a practice of philosophy and of metaphysics. They didn't focus so much on Kundalini. I don't know if Kundalini, the knowledge and understanding of Kundalini came at a separate date, like later. So it was before the development of the understanding of Kundalini, such as like in Buddhism. In Buddhism, the older Buddhism, they never talk about Kundalini because, or the chakras, because the chakras were found. It's not like the chakras weren't there; they just weren't maybe discovered as a means for for opening us spiritually. There was no point to mention them. There was no point to do that. Just like also the Buddha never talked about Reiki, even though Reiki, of course, has been around since humans existed. We've always been able to heal with our hands, but the Buddha never mentioned it. One, because it was not necessary, and two, because it wasn't a practice that Buddha practiced and needed, and maybe even veered from what he wanted to express in his teachings. So yeah, the Kashmir Shaivists didn't really talk much about Kundalini, or at all. Of course, I haven't read every Kashmir Shaivist text, and I'm not a scholar, so not much has been mentioned around Kundalini. But interestingly enough, the main deity of Kashmir Shaivism is Bhairav, and which is the same name that I have, coincidentally. And or maybe it's not a coincidence, but the main deity of Kashmir Shaivism is Bhairava, and Bhairava's consort is Bhairavi. So there is an interesting coincidence there, because this Navaratri is working with Bhairavi. And another name for Bhairavi, or another name for Kundalini, sorry, is Bhairavi. So we can see some correlations there. And the name of Bhairavi as Kundalini is suggesting the dormancy of Kundalini as the serpent coiled 3.5 times, sleeping until Bhairavi until Kundalini starts to awaken through the power of Shakti. As we add Shakti, then this serpent starts to awaken, and of course the serpent is symbolic after all, but is suggesting kind of because the symbol of the serpent itself is something which is, well, one, maybe dark and scary because of the danger of a snake, but the other is because a serpent symbolizes the kind of a dark force, or maybe a very raw and primitive force of this of life. And so Kundalini is this as well. It's a very primitive source of energy, a very pure energy, an energy which is only just differentiated. So this is also the energy of Shakti, that energy of Shakti is only just differentiated from non-dual to dual. And so it's this very raw source of energy that we can do anything we wish to with. We can bring it up to different chakras to bring us different cities or supernatural powers or whatever it is we want to do with it. Or we can actually bring Bhairavi up through the chakras, up through the different planes of existences into Bhairava, into Shiva, thereby them merging as one. Now, at the same time, Kashmir Shaivism is also it's a Shaivist tradition. It's not a Shakti tradition like some other traditions in India. Kashmir Shaivism is based around Shiva. So there isn't actually much mention of Shakti at all, even though it's a Tantra, but there isn't much mention of Shakti at all, because it deems Shiva as being the highest. So, of course, we can comment on that whichever way we wish. But other traditions in India place Shakti at the highest, and Shiva is just a corpse. Shiva doesn't really have any point other than being the ground of existence, which is, of course, really important. But Shiva isn't going to help you pay the bills or help you have children or help you have a good relationship with your brother or something. Shakti does that for you. So we can really see the differences, and also how they're paths for different kinds of people. The Shaivist is looking purely and solely towards the divine, towards that ground of the ground that holds all the energy in place, and that which is beyond. And from there, learning to integrate that into everyday life, whereas the Shakti will be looking to first harmonize life often. I mean, I'm also generalizing here, but the Shakti will be looking to harmonize life first, get the kids get the financial stability, get the harmony in all of relations in life, and then look towards the divine. And I'm generalizing as well. And that would be more the Shakta. In Shivaham Tantra, it's actually very well blended one between the two. Although Kashmir Shaivism isn't taught in Kashmir Shaivism. I mean, yeah, Kashmir Shaivism isn't taught in Shivoham specifically, but there's a blend of a perfect blend of Shiva Shakti to make this whole, and both are considered extremely important. As I've talked about before as well. Mm-hmm. So this meditation that I will give to you today is, as I said, is an adapted version, is a meditation that I will adapt to meet us where we are in our practice. And a little note about the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, where this meditation comes from. The Vijnana, or I always say it wrong, it should be Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, is a text in Kashmir Shaivism. And why don't I just write Vijnana Bhairava for those of you who don't know? Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. So the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is a tantric text coming from Kashmiri Shaivism. And it's a very important text in Kashmir Shaivism. And it's no text has really been created or made like this before, as far as I know. Maybe there has been. But as far as I know, and it contains 112 different kinds of meditations. If you do a search of Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, you can find multiple different copies, multiple different things on the internet. I always like to go first to this commentator, Jai Deva Singh. I always like to go to this commentator first, and yeah, just type all that in and go free ebook, and you'll go to the Internet Archives. You can easily download a free ebook, and you can start to read it. It is a little bit hard to understand maybe for the beginner, but there are also other translations out there. There's a lot of things on YouTube as well that you can look up, and to get more into this, there are also some commentators or translators that turn these things into poems, but they kind of, although it sounds nice and it brings you somewhere, it also misses the spirit of the scholarly nature of Kashmir Shaivism. So Kashmir Shaivism, you to study it, especially to teach it, to really understand it, either you have to have been doing yoga for a really long time to understand a lot of the terminology, Sanskrit terminology, or you have to be a scholar. And there's definitely some texts out there that I can't begin to understand because I don't have enough background, because it does take that, like every third word is in Sanskrit and is hard to be translated into English, because sometimes there's just no translation for English. Like let's say there's no translation really for chakra in English. We can call them glands, but they're not glands. We can call them wheels, but of course they're not really wheels, they're chakras. So they have a certain, it's important sometimes to use the Sanskrit terminology as well. So the Manana Bhairava Tantra is basically, like a lot of tantras, a conversation and a discussion between Bhairava, between the main deity of Kashmir Shaivism, Bhairava, a form of Shiva, a terrifying form of Shiva, and Bhairavi, a terrifying, awesome, in the truest sense, between that form of Shakti. So Bhairava and Bhairavi. And here in this text, Shakti is asking questions, and Shiva, or no, actually, it's the other way around. Shiva is asking questions, and Shakti is answering. Anyways, I actually forget that. So, yeah, just let me have a look. I've had a brain fart right now. Yeah. Yeah, it's what I said originally. Because sometimes they switch around in different texts. Bhairavi is asking Bhairav, what is your nature? Where do you come from? What is your importance? Who are you? And then Bhairava answers it. And then she asks a couple of more things. Then Bhairava answers it. And then it's kind of like, in more or less words, well, how does one understand your nature and realize your nature? And at the same time, though, we can think of these two as deities. However, the more important way to read this book, read it, study this book, study this text, is to see it more as your own everyday consciousness asking your Bhairava, asking your supreme consciousness, what is my nature? Who am I? Where do I come from? So this is the importance of how we should read these texts, that it's actually us asking ourselves, asking our lower selves, for lack of a better way to put it, asking our higher selves, our everyday self, this identity, the messy self, asking, pleading for, like, asking, please answer me. How do I realize this nature? And so this higher self, our own Bhairava, answers and gives 112 different ways in which to realize this truth, really. Mm-hmm. And this text, it doesn't stop there, because once actually you've studied this text for a while, you don't need to follow these meditations like they are, I don't know, like they're written in stone. And if you do something a little bit differently, you're going to go to Kashmir Shaivist hell, and you will screw up your energy system or something like that. It's not like that. It's not like some practices are like that. Like, you can't just start doing your own pranayamas not knowing what you're doing. But with these meditations, once you've studied them for a while, once you've meditated with them for a while, then you can really start to go in and feel like, let's say you sat down and you were starting to do some just some simple breath awareness. So you know a lot of different meditation styles, and this is often how I'll sit down and meditate. I'll start with some breath awareness, but then I'll notice actually something that rather something shifts, and instead of me having breath awareness, I'm suddenly aware of the gaps between the thoughts. that the thoughts don't come in sequence, one right after another with no space, but actually there can be space in between each thought, and we can extend the space between each thought, because I'm feeling a little bit more mental than like pranic, feeling going into the breath. Or actually I might even feel a little bit disconnected from the body. So of course this can also be a psychosis or whatever, but if it's kind of a temporary thing and we're feeling a little bit disconnected from the body, we can do one of two things. Either we can find a way to become more connected with the body by doing yoga and breathing practices and feeling the body and whatever, or we can actually use this disconnection that we're feeling from the body to our advantage, to feel, because there's a meditation in this Vijnana Vairava Tantra where you feel the emptiness of the body, that all that you have is a layer of thin skin on the outside of the body, and everything inside is just emptiness. And then you go to each and every part of the body, and all you feel is emptiness. But this emptiness as well is more than just like, I don't know, a void inside the body, but it's actually also infinite, that also actually like even the skin no longer even exists and you are just expanded and infinite. So allow your, when you do a silent meditation, allow your meditation to flow into whatever is working for you, and understand as well that if you've been sitting there for 10 or 15 minutes and you're still just in the mind thinking about I don't know, some project you have on the go, then change it up, try to shift it up. Don't like rigidly be like, I am going to sit here for 2 hours focusing on this breath awareness, because it might not work for you. So in saying that, feel free, and this is radical as well, it might even be radical to say for more traditionalists on this Kashmir Shaivist path, but find your own ways to meditate as well with this Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. It's always good to have the base, that scholarly base of what was said originally, how can I incorporate that, and then from there kind of make it your own. And encourage others as well, if you ever teach this, that they should go to the source, become accustomed to the scholarly account of it, and then make it their own. Because when we make something our own, then it starts to really vibrate with us, but it won't always work for others. We can also share what we've created as well. But it's really good that people have a base, because as well, one of the first translators of this Vijnana Bhairava Tantra that came to the West and that was widely read and influential as well was the Paul Reps version. And he wrote a book called Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, which is actually a Zen book, a book on Zen, about Zen. And at the very end, he lists these 112 different meditations, but he does so with his own kind of translation, or I guess just own way of putting it, rather than getting scholarly into it. And he definitely misses the mark on some of them. He kind of gets onto the mark on others. Sometimes it's hard to understand his version, sometimes easier than the scholarly version. But anyway, I'm saying this because then when Osho came around and decided to talk on these 112 meditations, he didn't go to that scholarly source, as Osho wouldn't do that. he went to Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, and then just took that one small sentence and then talked for an hour on it. So then whenever you get the Osho version of this Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, it's called the Book of Secrets by Osho. And because it's all transcript from him, it's around 1,200 pages long because it's just him talking. And yeah, and sometimes which is the genius of Osho. Sometimes he hits the mark and his understanding is very deep, and he brings in other subjects into that understanding, and it's good. At other times, he's just trying to fish around to say something wise, which is kind of like what he used to do a lot of. So I will we'll be working on Dharana 12 from the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. I'll just share my screen. And we'll do the chanting out loud, and then we'll talk a bit. Right there. Yeah. Okay, so this is Dharana 12 of Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, and I would also recommend, if you do study this text a little bit, to also, before you actually read the English, to read the Sanskrit as a mantra, because it is a mantra. And so by reading the mantra, we actually get into the sound frequency, the resonance, the sound resonance of what this practice is actually doing for us. So I'll start. Madhunadi Madhya Samasta Pisasutra Barupaya Diyatanta Vyomaya Devya Taya Deva Prakshate. Do it once more. Madhya Nadi Madhya Samasta Visasutra Bharupaya Dhyatanta Vyomaya Devya Taya Deva Prakshate. And Jaideva Singh says this, and this isn't a commentary. This is more the actual translation, more or less. Translation in an English sentence. One should meditate on the space inside the central channel, situated in the middle of the body, with a form like the fiber inside the stem of a lotus. Because of that goddess, the deity appears. Because of that goddess, the deity appears. Now, that second sentence, it can be read two ways. Either it can be read because of that goddess, because of that Bhairavi, the deity appears, kind of like because he is talking to Bhairavi. But we can also read this because Bhairavi is also Kundalini. So because of Kundalini, the deity appears. So we can read that kind of in two ways. And so what it's saying is that this central channel in the middle of the spine, there's actually three central channels, one inside the other, inside the other. So the very finest, subtle channel, that whenever we can place our attention there, whenever we can meditate in this central channel, then we can then we can have the deity appear. And the deity appearing here is meaning, because that word up in the Sanskrit, prakshate, prakash is not murti, or like that physical representation of Bhairav looking however Bhairava looks as a deity. Prakshate, prakash, is referring to the light of God, the light that appears in realization, not just as, like, I don't know, some sort of visualization or dream kind of being that's there. So I've also included the Paul Reps version, which is right below it. Place your whole attention in the nerve, delicate as the lotus thread, in the center of your spinal column. In such, be transformed. So it's a little bit different. It says something similar, but that transformed word there might be a little bit misleading, because in Kashmir Shaivism, we're not transformed. In Tantra, we're not transformed. Because transformation kind of sounds like we're becoming something else. So, although it could be used, but better is awakened, or yeah, that dormant quality just becoming active in the dormant quality. Yeah. So this is the practice we'll be doing, but we'll be doing a few practices beforehand. We won't just jump into this. We'll do a few practices beforehand. And we will be probably doing around 30 minutes or something like that. So I'd like to invite you to, if you have your asan nearby and you're not on your moon time, or you have your the asan you've been using for this practice, which is the purple color or also the red color, I'd like to welcome you to get that now. But also, if you don't have it, then it's not absolutely necessary. It will just help a little bit. And then you can place your asan on the floor or wherever is good for you to still see me, if that's helpful. Of course, your eyes will most probably be closed anyways in the meditation, so you don't necessarily need to see the screen. And for those of you at home watching this, you're welcome to pause and go get whatever you need. Take a drink of water if you need. Have a bathroom break. So feel free to find a comfortable position on your asan. Make sure the back is straight and vertical. But relaxed. And you're welcome to keep your eyes open at a half gaze. If the eyes are open, just try to make sure that you're not looking at different objects around the room and whatever, that you have it fixated softly on one point in front of you. And come into the breath. Start by breathing deeply. Relaxing the major muscle groups. And then deepening into this, allow the breath to become soft and light. Your attention to the middle of the chest. To your center, to the center. And the center is a place where metaphysically everything revolves around. And it's a place of stability. this place of silence, which has always been with you and always will be with you, for it is the ground of your being. Contains no phenomenon. It's unphenomenal. And from here, I'd like to invite you to start internally chanting, mentally repeating the Bhairavi mantra, to do some japa. We'll just do 5 or 10 minutes. Whenever you're ready, you can stop the mantra. Keeping the eyes closed, bring your attention to the base of the spine in Muladhara. The root chakra contains Kundalini. And here, coiled 3.5 times, is Bhairavi, dormant. And as you bring your attention up the spine, in the subtlest of the channels, in the middle of the spine, slowly perceive this serpent, this Kundalini, start to awaken just through your awareness moving into the spine in an upward motion. We can move slowly, doesn't need to be fast. We can just rest our awareness in the spine. Notice the silence that this starts to bring. And whenever you feel like you've reached into the top of the spine, into the head, pause there for a moment. And then move this upward to unite this energy with Shiva, with Bhairava at the top of the head. If silence comes, be present and aware. If mind comes, be present and aware. Slowly we'll start to move out of a more of a formal meditation. But know that although the meditation might end, that every moment of every day can be a moment where you can awaken. We can use the tools of Tantra and tools through meditation, through different the tools we receive through different traditions to open us towards the divine, to allow that to awaken us. Whenever you're ready, we'll end this meditation. So I would like to, whenever you're ready, open up for any questions you might have, any comments. Feel free to share your meditation or any experiences you had in this meditation. And yeah, we can go from there.
Hi. I will share slash ask a question. Um, I was finding it difficult to really like sink into meditation. I have a lot going on in my house that's like distracting to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
But but like on a very subtle level, I feel like there's like these shivers that kind of go through my body that feels like it starts kind of at my root chakra that kind of rises up anytime I'm really focusing on my spine and
Yeah.
like kind of envisioning this energy and the snake moving up the spine.
Yeah.
So I feel it's always really cool when I can really like sense that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wonder, is it more important in a meditation, and I guess it depends on the meditation, but generally speaking, is it more important to like feel relaxed in the body or to allow whatever happens to kind of happen? Because I notice that when I'm working with Kundalini in mantra or in this kind of meditation, like my Mula Bandha starts to activate, and like, yes, I get like a little bit tense in like in my hands and kind of and like sometimes in my shoulders as well. So I wonder, like, should I be, when I notice that, relaxing the body, or is that okay to allow that to stay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of really depends, but often we just allow whatever needs to happen because sometimes it can be the energy coming to a blockage and then it needs to clear through that blockage. So I know in the beginning I felt a lot of like yeah, contractions of different parts of my body or a lot of movements, but that was it's good to allow that to happen up to a point, like we discussed in the last class. Up to a point, if it starts to become painful or something, then we need to do something about that. But until then, we can just allow it to happen. um and Yeah, because that will eventually go away and we'll have a true and deep relaxation once we have all of those blockages gone. But it's very good that you're having that feeling of like shivers in the body. That's quite a like quite a clear sign for Kundalini. Another one is heat, a lot of heat in the body. Another one is rigidity. But really, there's like, I used to give a talk on Kundalini, and I was reading from a text I had found that describes about 100 different symptoms, like bouncing up and down in meditation, suddenly starting to float in meditation, um, lying on the ground and flopping around like a fish out of water, like it's like endless numbers of like kind of signs of it, and also nothing at all, just like kundalini. When like if we can go deep into our meditation and we start to notice like uh that we are not we anymore, or I, we are not I anymore, but just infinite and very subtle, and the I kind of disappears, then that's also kundalini, but at a very subtle level, so that it's like the, yeah, it can be an ultimate. And so we also needn't get hung up on wanting to feel certain things, because some people like don't they feel like nothing's working for them because they don't start to have these feelings, but it doesn't mean that it's not working for them. It just works in a different way. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Because each one of us are different, and yeah.
I need to share my experiences a little bit.
Yeah.
First, I wanted to say that book, Flesh, and Bones, that's like been in my parents' house for many years, and I've never read it, but maybe I'll read it.
Yeah, I actually don't
Yeah, my
know if
dad's
I've read it.
thing back in the 70s. He kind of got
Yeah, I've opened it, I
um,
know, but then yeah, the last couple of pages contain the 112 meditations. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, and then thank you so much for sharing that meditation. It was very powerful. I was very unique for me to um, move into like silent meditation and japa kind of in the same
Mhm.
period of meditating, and I really liked that. Yeah, for me, I felt a lot of heat in the body, and I've been feeling that especially with working with the Bhairavi mantra past few days. Um, and I felt like a very strong awareness of my energy and of its ability to travel up. But there was only like so long I could hold it at my head. You know, it would get there and then it just couldn't sustain itself. And eventually, um, allowing to stay in the area of the heart just felt a bit more sustainable to me, and that I could sink into presence in that space more than the effort to bring it to the head.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm to say to that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the power of Shakti. The power of Shakti allows us so that we can lift it anywhere and keep it. We can lift it over. We can lift that awareness over to our friend and keep that, or over to our student and keep that, um, keep that risen in that area. So yeah, that's like the power of Shakti, like what I was talking about last class, how this is what Shakti does for us. It builds that, and it allows that strong ability to um, to maintain that wherever we feel we need it or want it. But yeah, and the heart is just as important as the top of the head. But when it comes to Kundalini, the heart is like yeah, like often when we talk about the heart as hridaya, we're kind of we're not talking within the realm of the Kundalini tradition. The heart as Hridaya, it's from a different tradition, which is talking about the heart of Shiva, the heart of absolute consciousness, which in terms of Kundalini is up here. Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas then, like when it's in Kundalini, then it's a little bit more of a visceral, like feeling of love that we have, and not like the expression of Shiva as the infinite, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Okay, a little bit. So the teaching on the Hridaya, that mostly comes from Kashmir Shaivism,
Mm-hmm.
or from
Kashmir Shaivist.
So the Hridaya is the place where Shiva and Shakti are already in union, and it's like the heart of Shiva, the heart of pure consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're using Kundalini to get to that space, you have to bring it all the way to above the head in order to get that same realization. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that was you listened. You were listening. So yeah, it's exactly that. Like because often as well when we talk about the heart, we talk about it in terms of that visceral experience of love, like that we like this gushy feeling of love that we have for, I don't know, for a dog or for a baby or something, you know. It doesn't have to be sexual in any way, but this gushy feeling of love. But then, like, although that in essence is the same as the heart of Shiva, the heart of Shiva is the absolute union of Shiva Shakti, where you as a person disappears completely. So it can be located in the heart, but it's also located in your big toe. It's located on the tip of your nose. It's located on the moon, on the dark side of the moon. It's located in the depth of the ocean. It's everywhere, you know. It's in it's in that dark corner of the room that you never sweep out, you know. So yeah, it's everywhere. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it feels like a bit of a paradox that can be everywhere and everything, and yet we have to, I don't know, we don't have to, but sometimes it feels like we have to like try so hard to also get to it, and it's on top of our head.
Yeah, and even this understanding that it's on top of the head, just like the understanding that Hridaya has to be in the center of the chest, it can be misleading because it's also everywhere. So yeah, this was something I had to learn in a very real way, that because I was so fixed on having this up here that I missed out on where it was everywhere else. So yeah. And like a teacher like Rupert Spira, kind of through his teachings, will convince you that actually you that like the striving itself, there's no sense to strive because you are already that. There is no, like, there is no need to do anything because you are already united with that. You just you've just lost that understanding. So a lot of what any kind of a practice is just to understand that again, because it's been lost somehow in our training, in our teaching, in the world we live in. We need to live in a very dual world. We live in terms of quantity, you know, The more that we eat, the better we feel. The more we drink, the better we feel. So we need more and more and more. We need, yeah, of it. And yeah, the way society has been going, it becomes very materialistic. So the more, the better, and then it's kind of a paradox that actually, like, you don't need anything more because you're already that. You're the universal consciousness. It's just that outward expression of wanting to be more, which makes us want to have more, to eat more, to be more, to have more strength or more courage or whatever, more followers, whatever it is. But we're already universal. So all the practice is doing is bringing us back home, bringing us back to who we already are. Good. So on that note, I'm going to leave you here. So for all of you, those present and those who watch this at a future date, know that this consciousness and awareness is your very essence, is the ground of your being. There's nothing to gain. There's nowhere to go. And there's nothing to do. The contentment, that the blissfulness of contentment is yours and is ultimate. Om Maham So Sangam Shivoham Shivoham Shivatman Shivoham Shivoham. May Bhairavi awaken our longing for understanding absolute truth. May we all be blessed. This is Kailash. Kailash says hello to everyone.
Hi, Kailash.
You remember Krista? You remember Sophia? Oh.
Hi. So nice to see you.
Mm-hmm.